Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the Humans in AI podcast. This is the podcast where we dive into the real life stories of the top leaders and entrepreneurs within the artificial intelligence, high performance computing, and data center space. These people truly are at the top of their game. We're going to have honest and authentic conversations with all our guests. We're going to chat about their career journeys, the highs and the lows, and even the lessons they've learned from the mistakes they've made and the victories they've celebrated along the way. It's all about sharing their experience and their knowledge and how they see the future of the space they're in. So if you're looking for practical advice from people who've walked the same path as you, or just a little inspiration, you're in the right place. We're going to be dropping new episodes every Thursday, so make sure you stay tuned and don't miss out. Well, good morning, Nigel. Thanks for joining today.
Wow, good morning, Nick. It's lovely to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I've been looking forward to this. It's obviously something we've had in the diary for a few weeks now. For the benefit of everyone listening and watching, do you mind just giving us sort of a bird's eye view of who you are, where you work, what you do, and then we can sort of go straight through into it?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nigel Cannings. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Intelligent Voice. We're a software company based in London. We specialize in speech recognition, natural language processing, AI. Of course, everyone specializes in AI these days, but particularly focused on kind of secure locations, so secure comms, particularly financial institutions, insurance companies, people like that who've got processing needs which can't be dealt with just by sending stuff out to the cloud. So that's what we do.
Fantastic. Now you have an unusual background, to say the least, for people that founded tech firms. Yep. So we'll go back to the very beginning just to work out how you got here. You're a lawyer or a solicitor.
Yeah. You shouldn't tell too many people that name. Particularly Americans. I mean, you say you're a lawyer, and no one ever wants to speak to you again. So, I started off. I mean, when I was younger, my dad sold the first ever computers in Europe, the first ever personal computers in Europe. So, anyone who was around in the late 70s and remembers a Commodore PET or the Apple II or any of those things, my dad sold the first ones of those out of a shop in Ilford.
Oh, wow.
Actually, on the Gantsill roundabout in Ilford. So I kind of grew up around technology, and my dad knew nothing about tech, absolutely nothing. Still to this day, knows very little about it and spends a lot of his time phoning me up, asking me various tech-related questions. But he was a brilliant salesman, and he saw an opportunity in small personal computers. Was probably a bit ahead of his time at that point. A lot of people who are a little bit, people of my age will remember things like the Sinclair Spectrum or the ZX80 and ZX81. Those were kind of the ones that really
came in about Commodore 64 is sort of
there you go. Yeah, you see, you can always tell someone's age by the first computer they remember.
That's the 80s.
Absolutely. And so I wanted to do something. Well, I really wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps. I wanted to run my own business. So I'd lived in the States for a year. I went out after I left school. I went and lived in America for a year. And I came back and I walked into my dad's office and I said to him, I've got a place at university, but I said, I don't want to go. I want to start my own business. I want to do what you've done. I really admire everything that you've built. And he looked at me and he swore at me for the first time in his life and said, if you've got any effing idea how hard this has been, he said, go and get a proper job. And if at the end of it you want to become a businessman, it's what we used to call entrepreneurs back in the day, then let's talk about it. So I went to university. I studied law because I couldn't add up, so there's no point in becoming an accountant. My teaching style wouldn't have been very good. I didn't like the sight of blood. There's a whole bunch of things that I couldn't possibly do.
You narrowed it down.
I narrowed it down, and I kind of became a lawyer by default. And I did that for kind of 12 years or so, and probably longer actually. Walked back into my dad's office. I'd made some money out of stock options working for a big American software company. And I walked back into his office and I said, right, I'm ready. I want to do it. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, no, you remember when, I was 18, I came into your office and said that, I want to do this thing. And all you said to me was go and get a proper job and then come and do it. Well, I've done the proper job and I'm ready to do it now. And he's like, what are you talking about? No, but I said I've lived by this for the last 17 years, And of course, what it was is, and I've probably done this to my own children as well, they interrupt you at a busy moment and you just kind of brush them off with something. And he accidentally gave me my mantra for my life, just because he
Yeah.
was busy one Thursday afternoon. So that is actually how I went from law. And as a lawyer, I'd very much specialised in technology law back when I qualified, which was 1992 or three, something like that. There weren't really very many people who were specialising in law specifically that related to technology, so software licensing and software M&A and all that type of stuff. And there were probably only about 50 lawyers in London who really specialised in it at that point. And because the firm that I was working on at the time, I was the only lawyer who knew how to turn a computer on, and I really was the only one in
A rare breed.
a rare breed. They're like, well, okay, well, you can do all the software licenses then. And I kind of accidentally became a technology lawyer, and that was kind of how I got into the market of technology law, and eventually ended up working for American software companies. And then, as I said, at the age of 35, I'd kind of felt I'd done all I could with it, and rather stupidly decided to leave and start my own business. Which, and of course, the business I started was in technology, because why not do something completely different rather than stick with the thing that you've done for 15 years up to that point.
It's a fascinating thing, isn't it? Because your mid-30s, 40s is often where early 40s, where often people take the leap into starting their own company, isn't it? And it's a journey, isn't it? You're talking about it in your own mind for a number of years before you actually take the leap as well, aren't you? Because it's a process to get to. It doesn't just normally happen in my mind. I mean, for me, it was probably 3 years worth of thinking, planning, saving, coming up with the idea of what the business is going to be. So, I mean, how did you get to that point of what the company was going to be in terms of your first sort of foray into sort of being a businessman, as your dad would put it?
Yeah. And actually, the point you make is really interesting, because I spend a lot of time speaking to people who are looking at starting their own business. So I do work with universities and other places, and the trouble is, we've got this culture now where people are, they're doing computer science degrees, or they're doing business degrees, and they're saying, my job is going to be starting a business. I want to run a startup, as if running a startup is a profession or a career. And I keep saying to them, you don't understand. It's not. The most successful businesses that people build are businesses which are based out of problems they themselves had.
Yep.
And the problem could be, I worked in a profession and I can see a better way of doing something. Or, or in my case, I worked in a profession and all my bosses hated me, so I couldn't possibly continue working in a profession anymore, But there's always something which drives
there's a reason.
you. There's always a reason, exactly. But it is, it's really difficult to do something that you have no expertise in.
Yeah.
And so for me, a lot of it was about looking at problems that I could solve. I even though I didn't have a technology background per se, I taught myself to program when I was younger, and there were issues that I could see that I knew needed solving. And for me, a lot of it was around the use of language, so natural language processing. So I actually was involved in a natural language processing company for a number of years. Made some investments, and it didn't, it gave me some ideas as to how I wanted to proceed going forward. So my first kind of big leap into the void was, I wrote a Twitter trending tool. Funnily enough, in fact I did it before Twitter themselves released one, because I could see that there was value in unstructured information. I could kind of, I don't want to sound like was being particularly pressing at that point, but it was clear that the world was becoming super saturated with information, and that information was coming at us from all angles, and we had email coming in, and instant messaging was coming into the mainstream, and Twitter was really the first time when people were beginning to see a kind of a massive information being thrown at them. So I had this idea that we could take large amounts of unstructured information and make some sense of it. And come sort of 2008, there was I looking at the depths of the financial crisis, and as a lawyer, I was thinking a lot of what we're hearing coming out of this is about the fact that a lot of communication went unmonitored. A lot of communication wasn't understood. There's a lot of stuff going on email, on internal chat, and on voice channels that was just not being monitored. And perhaps if we'd have had access to what was being said and we could bring it all together and analyze it, perhaps we could find a way of, of just raising a flag, saying, go and look at this, have a think about this. Is this pattern of communication something that we ought to be looking at? So I was kind of half technology, which was the kind of voice and email side, and half lawyer, which was we've got to dig into this problem a bit more. And I thought it'd be easy. I mean, I think everyone who comes up with a business idea, right? You think, well, obviously, because I've seen the problem, surely loads of other people will see the problem, and therefore I will walk into offices across the land and people will hail me as a savior and just write checks and throw them at me. And
did they?
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, I'm still in. I had a 3-year plan when I started, and I'm in about year 2 of that plan. 15 years later, so I don't. I still feel I'm beginning to get there.
It's a journey.
For
sure.
It's a journey. And sometimes, and I think sometimes with technology, it's easy to think of kind of great technology before people are ready for it.
Yeah.
So I was doing kind of genuinely groundbreaking work in speech recognition with my team, in terms of using new types of technology and the kind of speed at which we did it and the accuracy at which we did it. Yet the marketplaces I was working in just weren't ready for it at that point. There's you go into financial services and insurance and so on, and really only today are they beginning to embrace how voice technology can help their businesses, can help their compliance businesses, but also help their retail businesses and understanding their customers. And that has been a long and at times quite frustrating journey. And it's only really through kind of pure stubbornness and attrition that I've kind of kept going to get to this point where actually people can see the benefit of what we do. But as you say, it's a journey getting into it, and then it's a journey when you're doing it. And I'm not necessarily sure, what is the conclusion of that journey? How do you say yes? I've done it. How do you say yes? I've made it. I mean, that is an as yet unanswered question, really.
You're not on a beach yet, so
not this week.
That's the thing. Not this week.
No, so nor would I want to be. Actually,
well, do you know what? The journey is the fun bit, isn't it? And as you say, sometimes you come to market with an idea a little bit too early, isn't it? And I think we've seen it happen across many different things over the years. Is is the technology ready? I think is sometimes is in the past, and also, but actually, is the target audience actually ready to accept something new as well? And it's getting them bought into that. And I think technology in lots of different sectors. I mean, actually, recruitment is probably one of the most backwards sectors in technology. It's still very much about bashing the phones, and it's a very manual sort of process, and it hasn't really embraced it. And even though there's lots of tech companies out there now, so many organisations choose not to use them. And it's probably just not too dissimilar to the issues you had those years ago.
Yeah, and I think also technology in the HR industry and around HR and recruitment and so on, that people are right to be mistrustful at this point, because we've seen attempts to automate say CV assessment, for example, and it goes disastrously wrong. I mean, absolutely disastrously wrong, because if you're not careful, you're building bias into it, in reinforcing bias. And there's a very famous story about Amazon, only recruiting kind of white young men as a result of the algorithm that they put in place, because effectively they trained their algorithm on past CVs that they'd accepted, and there was a heavy bias towards young white men. And so what that meant is when you put in new CVs, if words appeared in it which looked like it lent towards someone who was, it was particularly biased against women. And so if you'd gone to a women's college, or you said you did women's football or women's basketball, it would immediately mark you down,
Oh
just
wow.
because, just on grounds of sex. So it, it's it's really it's really interesting how
Mm.
this type of technology can look like magic, but if you don't understand how it's built and you don't understand how it's used. And so I'm quite skeptical about its use in recruitment at the moment, given where the technology is. I think there's a lot more work needs to be done on how we debias things, and how do we use it to interact better with people? I mean, you know, you probably actually want to spend more time interacting with people, Nick, rather than less time interacting with people. That's your part of the service that you offer, is the human side of it, not the
A
machine
hundred
side of
percent.
it.
100%. I mean, but there's definitely tasks that can be done, utilizing AI that automate my workload so I can spend my time speaking to
Exactly.
people. And I think, and that's where, myself as a founder or even just a leader in a business would be interested in those kind of products. The ones that sort of shortlist profiles and, give me what it thinks are the natural best, as you say, there could be bias in there that actually removes some of the brilliant ones. And also the trouble is, as we've always said, and the same for you, Nigel, your CV represents 20% of who you are. So
Yes.
actually, there's all this other, about you that I only get from having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and it's the same for lots of other sectors as well. I mean, I imagine there's arguments for it in law, there's arguments for it in medicine, about how AI can be used as a benefit and as an enablement platform, as opposed to actually being something that could end up harming what we're ultimately trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. What we have to do is look at how do we enhance human expertise rather than replace human expertise. And I think there's a real drive at the moment to try and take people out of the workplace using AI. And that for me is one of the big worries, is that what
Yep.
we say is, well, actually, we can replace people with AI. And yeah, maybe you can to a degree, but actually there is always going to need to be a human in the loop somewhere. And what we should be doing is using AI to have better informed humans. That's really the thing. We ought to help you know more, rather than say, well, we don't need Nick anymore, because what we're going to do is we're going to replace Nick with an avatar, and the avatar Nick will do all of the interviews, and avatar Nick will score that. And well, but how do we actually really get to the essence of who that person is? Because ultimately, what I'll do is I'll send my avatar to go and have an interview with your avatar, and they can duke it out between them. And and then how will anyone know what I can do? So yeah, I think we're looking at um, the way humans are involved in AI all wrong at the moment. And I'm really worried that if we drive human expertise out of professions, when we suddenly wake up and realize that we need human expertise back again, there's going to be no way of training it. There's going to be, how are we going to get humans trained up as experts if everything that we train those experts on has disappeared, if all the experts have retired? It's like all the COBOL programmers. We were in real danger of the entire the entire mainframe infrastructure collapsing because COBOL was disappearing, and
Yep.
it was only because a whole bunch of young programmers realized that they could have an easy life and earn a lot more money doing COBOL, that they actually started to learn it. So we're actually now seeing young programmers who are COBOL programmers who are coming into that market. But it was only because there was a really concerted effort to increase salaries and train people that we got them in there. And that was one very kind of limited niche case. What happens if all your clients say, well, actually, no, we can use a platform that charges 1/10 of what you charge us, and all the CVs go in, and someone comes out the other end. You know, when in 5 years' time they realise they've recruited a whole load of idiots, there
Yep,
may be
that's the
very
risk.
few. There may be very few human expert recruitment consultants available to step into that gap because the market has been decimated.
And that's the big thing. And we'll obviously go into that a little bit more because obviously, yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But you've obviously got a book out that covers some of these sort of concerns and issues,
Very
which we'll
true.
go into. So, but
Yeah.
before we do that, obviously, yeah, you moved into business world. You set yourselves your business up. You're now obviously Intelligent Voice. Been there for what 15 odd years now. You
Yeah,
think?
it's about 15 years. Yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah.
a pretty good sentence. So you've been there a while, and but obviously, this year you stepped into the CEO role as well. So you came from not a traditional CTO, as you said, because obviously you've not been technical, but you've got quite a technical mindset, haven't you? Really, so you
Yeah.
understand technology.
Yeah, and actually, there are still bits of the Intelligent Voice stack that I wrote the very original code for. So
Oh
not
wow.
much of it, but there are still bits which are right at the heart of some of our NLP stuff that I wrote a long time ago. So yeah, and I do have a very good understanding of the way technology fits together. So my job's always been one of problem solving. So of looking at complex problems in technology and being able to give people ideas of how to unjam them and unblock them. So could I, and actually my programming skills are pretty good. So I can actually, I wouldn't go through and try and do production level code for a lot of what we do now, but I still build prototypes for things. I still sit down and help people through those things. But you're right, moving kind of from law into technology and then being the CTO and moving on to the CEO role was an interesting transition for me. I mean, I'd always been very involved in the running of the business as a co-founder. You always are, but my business partner Ben was looking to spend a bit less time on the front line of the business, and frankly, I was ready to spend more time, on the front line of the business.
Yeah.
It's always been, going out there and engaging with people and meeting people and evangelizing what we do has always been a very big part of what I've enjoyed about the business. But then, of course, you become completely responsible for absolutely everyone and everything and every decision that gets
Yep.
made, and that adds an extra layer of fun and stress to what is already a fun and stressful job.
Indeed, and I think the important bit is obviously the co-founding bit, and I think a co-founding CTO might be different to a CTO in any other organisation because you have to wear multiple hats and you have to actually help with the running of the business. So, I mean, how did your role sort of work then as the co-founding CTO? I appreciate it evolved over those 15 years, but was it around the product development? Were you very much out in front of customers, and sort of helping selling the solution? What was the main sort of responsibilities?
Yeah, it kind of varied over time. I mean, a lot of it in the early years was just about sitting in front of customers. So I spent a lot of time on aeroplanes, a
Yeah.
lot of time on aeroplanes, flying back and forth to the States, flying around Europe. We got our first really big initial success over in the US. That was really that was where people really got what we were talking about earliest. But it was interesting that as the business developed, it was more in the European marketplace, which is a very kind of privacy sensitive marketplace and also a very highly regulated marketplace, that we've seen the sustained success. But yeah, my job was to go out, often just armed with a laptop, and go and plug it into a monitor somewhere and say, look, here's this interesting thing we built. It could be great for you. So yeah, a lot of it was around managing the long-term strategy of the product. One of the things that we've always been very good at as an organization is predicting where the market is going to be in 5 years' time. And in fact, in some years, 10 years' time. I mean, for some of the stuff that we did. And that really was the core of my job in the business. Yes, I went out and did loads of sales calls. Yes, I did, day-to-day product stuff, but it was that long-term strategy. It was being able to see where people were going to need our type of technology, A lot of my work was around security, thinking about um, we're hearing a lot of stuff at the moment around people being really worried about their data ending up being used for training, for example, on OpenAI and this type of stuff. I was building secure inferencing solutions long before anyone was worried about this. I was building explainable AI back in 2019. This is 5 years ago, and in AI terms, that's like that's multi-generational stuff. I mean, that
Yeah.
it's so. I've always tried to position the business as saying, we'll sell you the best of what's available today, but that also what you're looking at when you're dealing with us is we are also looking 3 to 5 years ahead, and you will have the best of tomorrow as soon as it becomes available as well. And I think that's been key to my role in the business. That's probably the bit that I brought that no one else could have brought.
So
Is
is that
is,
the
is that
primary
vision
thing
piece?
that you got right? Because I think that's as a founding CTO, and obviously there's lots of other people out there that are there's startups popping up all the time now, and it's a lonely job, isn't it? I mean, it's good that you had a co-founder, and it has lots of different challenges. But obviously, there's usually one thing you got really right that actually was behind a lot of your success. So for you, is it more that sort of future proofing of the business and making sure that you're always staying one step ahead, or certainly going on the right path?
Absolutely. Vision, I think that is the thing which has always kept us going. Anyone who deals with us knows that they are getting the future, and they are that's what they're buying it. That's the investment that they're making, is that they know that we will always be innovating. We will always be pushing ahead. We will always be kind of scanning the market and making sure that we understand what the trends are going to be. Have we always got it right? No, of course not. I mean, no one, but we've certainly got more right than we've got wrong over the years.
Yeah.
And I think that, for me, that when I look back on all of this, that will have been, I think, my greatest achievement in having founded the business is actually identifying niches which other people just didn't see, or they overlooked, or they thought were going to be too hard. It's a lot of what we've done is attacking problems which other people have said are just too hard, and we've proven that they're not impossible. They might be hard, but they're not impossible, and that's what sets you apart as a small business. We're not the only speech recognition company in the world. We're not the only NLP company in the world. We're not the only
Yeah.
AI company in the world, but we are one that's trusted by lots of very serious people. Trust our technology because they understand our ethos and where we're coming from. Um, and so I think if you're looking, when you are starting a business, I'm not necessarily sure what your USP is going to be when you start. You think you do. On day one, you think you understand what your USP is going to be, but actually, a lot of the time, it only develops as you start to kind of, as they say, no plan survives engagement with the enemy. I think Mike Tyson put it better about everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. I mean, it's absolutely true.
So that's bang on, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that once you've established what your USP is, hanging on to that
Yeah.
tenaciously is the thing which is that makes you more successful, and keeps that success growing.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, obviously, I think you said you're about 2 years into that 3 year sort of plan, which was about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And we, like you say, we do lots of right and left turns. Some of them are the good ones, some of them are the bad decisions. Are there any sort of, fundamental decisions that you made that haven't worked out that, actually, if you go back, you could do things differently, or things that you definitely have learned from? Because I think that's the thing, is actually it's often about the mistakes we make that actually make us stronger for it.
Yeah, and over the years, I've met a lot of people who kind of have seen what we've built and thought that they could just kind of leverage that into their product set for free, effectively. And they use so I've done a lot of stuff over the years where people have said, we want to showcase your product alongside what we're doing, whereas actually what they really meant was, we've got nothing to sell. and what we want is to make ourselves look better by showing your stuff instead. And we've had a lot of that over the
Yeah.
years, and it's often it's often larger companies who do this. They need to look a bit sexy, and it's ended up wasting a lot of time. But and here's the problem with this, but sometimes it pays off, and
Yeah.
sometimes it takes a very, very, very long time to pay off. So I'm still not sure. I'm still not, even today, I'm still not sure when approached with something like that, what the right answer actually is. I know a lot of the time it's been the wrong thing to do. Um, but we've built some incredibly strong and successful partnerships over time, and because that's the flip side of that coin in terms of what have we got right. I mean, the thing which has really strengthened and propelled the business is building some key strategic partnerships with companies who get what we do and are willing to then take that, embed it in what they're doing, and create a genuine value add.
Yeah.
And for a small technology company, you've only really got two. There's only really two routes. One is you kind of go out there on the and you try and build a big SaaS service. You say we've got a piece of software and we're going to build a SaaS service and everyone will come and use it and we'll become immensely successful like that. Or you say what we're actually going to do is we're going to build something that other people can use and resell. And so we'll take a channel strategy and we will sell out into the channel. And because the nature of what we do, by our very nature, we chose security. So that was the decision, in terms of turning left or right. So we decided to turn left and do security. And security often means on-premise deployments or private cloud deployments or private data center deployments, i.e. not SaaS. So we'd immediately kind of put ourselves in a box which said, right, okay, you are going to have to find a way. How am I going to get into the world's biggest banks? How am I going to get into the world's biggest insurance companies? Well, step one, I've got to sell to them directly because no one's ever going to resell my stuff until I've sold it directly. And then I find those people who can help me on that journey. So the thing I got wrong was also the thing I got right, which was kind of engaging with partners and just trying to sort the wheat from the chaff. And it's been immensely difficult to know where to devote that resource.
Trying to get the right channel partner and getting the buy-in, because signing a master agreement, that's the easy bit is getting them to actually sell it and actually getting the salespeople in that organisation to understand it and to buy in as well. And I think that's what I've seen with so many channel relationships is getting everybody rowing in the same direction.
Totally. I mean, I've got a stack of them, but the ones that have actually worked out, is a much smaller number than the ones that we've signed, and yet the amount of effort that's gone into all of them has been the same. Because why do it? You're either going to devote yourself to it or you're not going to devote yourselves to it. And those people who've devoted themselves to it, I love, and I will love till the end of time. Because if nothing else, it's an incredible validation of what you've built. I mean, as a technologist, seeing people use the thing that you built. And I think the one of the greatest days for me is I went on a meeting and someone referred to us as IV. Now, I know it sounds like a small thing, but obviously, the company is Intelligent Voice. But someone used the abbreviation IV as if everyone would understand what they were talking about. I was like,
like that
IV.
feels good.
We're IV now. We're not just Intelligent Voice. So it's that subtle shift in relationship is the great thing. But you don't know until you've tried it. We've tried all sorts of stuff over the years. We've built appliances, we've built mobile recording platforms. I spent one particularly memorable thing that we did. So back in crikey, almost 10 years ago now, probably. The FCA were mandating that people start recording mobile phone calls in London. It was sort of 2006, and there wasn't really anyone who had a good handle on this. The network operators weren't really getting into it, so people were looking for kind of rather clunky solutions to build it. And I found this tiny little chip that you could embed on a SIM card. And what you had to do is you literally took the SIM card out the phone, and you cut a tiny little chunk out the corner on it. You laid it over this kind of transparent chip and reinserted it into the SIM card, and you could make the SIM card do slightly different things, and one of which is it would direct the call through a recording server. And we kind of built a load of these things, and we kind of sticking SIM cards together. And I do remember sending someone to France on a ferry to check that it would work when you were roaming. And I was like, Ross, can you hear me? You know, and then we're looking, is it coming through on the recording server? And so we spent a lot of time building these chip-based mobile recording devices that we never actually ended up using, but it was kind of fun. But
I was going to say, like, over the years with IV, have you built lots of different products that haven't sort of flown and taken off, or has it been it's chosen to be really true and core to what you guys do?
No, loads of stuff. I mean, we really have. I'm a software guy. Right, I'm a software guy. I shouldn't be allowed anywhere near hardware, is really what I would say. So, because I love tinkering with bits of hardware. So, a lot of these sort of left turn bits have been bits which have involved kind of hardware related stuff somewhere. So, the mobile phone recording was one of them. Meeting room recording was another one. So, we built all these devices based on Raspberry Pis with kind of these circular array microphones on top of them to go and place in meeting rooms that people could use. And actually, you know, it's an idea which curiously is coming back again. We built something using mobile phones. So this is my particular favorite. So take any mobile phone and put a bunch of them in the room. So one goes in front of Nick, one goes in front of Nigel, one goes in front of someone else, and then we're each effectively individually recording our meeting, and then we would take all of that information and combine it into a single recording. I've actually got a patent on that, the idea of doing distributed recording using mobile phones. So, masses and masses of stuff, as I said, often unfortunately involving my obsession with small bits of hardware, have sent us off in the wrong direction. But what's interesting in it, and actually we built a virtual reality meeting room app.
Okay.
This was really interesting. So the UK government can be generous with grants. They can be generous with grants, and we built the very first version of Intelligent Voice, the accelerated voice solution, back in 2014, using a UK government grant to build the world's first GPU accelerated speech recognition platform. I mean, no one had ever done it before, and people said it was impossible, and I thought, sod it, we can do this, and we did. And so I've always been really grateful to the government for the support that we've got. And they funded a project under the KTP program. You may well be familiar with knowledge transfer partnership stuff, because there is often there's a recruitment element to it, because effectively it's a university and a company working together, and the university recruits someone to come and work on a project, normally a master's level or PhD level person, to work on a project for up to 3 years to develop something. And it started 50 years ago. It was originally for industry, but as we haven't got an industry anymore, they have to do it for technology. And so we had someone come in to build this virtual reality meeting room app, and it was amazing. We were actually able to physically kind of put people in chairs. So, you would be able to walk into your kitchen, Nick, and see me sitting in a chair in augmented reality and interact with us. And somewhere lurking around my office, I think I've still got some of the hardware, but probably best not probably best not dig it out. I've all got bits of stuff, and whilst the project didn't end up going anywhere, because it's actually really interesting to see how many of these kind of metaverse things have
Yeah.
not really taken off. I was able to introduce the fact that we'd done this into a meeting a while back, and just the fact that we'd done it was enough to give the customer confidence that we understood what we were talking about as a business. It was just the fact that we'd thought about it, we'd taken the time to do it, we'd demonstrated it could be done, gave them that feeling that actually this is a business that really understands my problems. No, we can't do it today. No, the technology is quite ready, but they know where the future lies. And so, whilst we've had all these left turns, I don't think at any point I've ever really felt that, well, that was such a stupid idea. It's quite often something we've been able to weave into future conversations. It demonstrates to people our understanding of the environment that we work in, and the fact that we didn't necessarily succeed with the product doesn't mean that we didn't understand the concept. And I think that it's expertise in, if you're a niche, and you know this as well, as a small niche company, you shouldn't be selling horizontal products.
No.
I don't think of us as a speech recognition company. We do speech recognition. I don't think of us as an NLP company. I don't think of us as an AI company. We do those things. What we actually sell is specific solutions to specific problems, to specific industries, which are tailored to their needs, which demonstrates our understanding of their business problems. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they just think, here's an idea, and I'll go and build a business that does speech recognition. You need these days, you need $1 billion to do that if you want to be a general purpose speech recognition company. And who's going to invest in it? No one. It's actually about how you apply the technology and the expertise. And I think that's where my background as a lawyer, being able to understand the problems that people have in great detail, compliance problems, legal problems, and then having a technology overlay to it, that I actually also understand the types of technology that can be brought to bear. I think that's why I've managed to build the business that we have built, because of that kind of unusual confluence of two different disciplines, and having a really deep understanding of both of them. And yeah, it's sent me off down some rabbit holes from time to time.
But like you say, it's a learning experience, isn't it? And it's that expertise. You put yourself in a room with a prospective customer. That's where you give them that confidence in working with intelligent voice. And I think it's really key, because you've got all these great sales teams now out there, but unless they really understand what they're selling, what they're talking about, the conversation only goes so deep.
Of course, exactly. I mean, you can look at a website, and websites are incredibly misleading. I mean, the fact that a lot of people almost seem to buy just on the basis that I said on my website I can do this. Fantastic, right, Really? Oh, well, that's fantastic. Well, don't bother talking to us then, because someone else's website said they could do that. It's really dangerous just relying on that type of thing, and we see this in sometimes in RFP processes as well, that particularly if the process has been outsourced, we often see just go and buy the cheapest one of those, and people fill out the RFP, and they'll say something in the RFP, and it's like, well, yeah, but have you actually really gone and investigated the claim? Have you really gone and dug into whether that's right for the business? Well, no, because it's an RFP, and someone said yes, so we move on, and that's why I think it's easy for companies to end up installing the wrong solutions, making the wrong decisions, purely based on the wrong type of information. And again, a lot of that is because they're not willing to engage with the humans. What they want to do is they want to engage with a form, they want to engage with email, they want to engage with a website, but they don't want to engage with the human. And because of that, they end up missing out on getting the right solution for their business and getting the right answer. And I think that's a massive problem still.
No, absolutely. No, 100%. So slight sort of change of subject a little bit. Obviously, very big news in the fact that you moved to CEO in January. You don't see many CTOs go into the CEO role. It does happen. Have you noticed has there been a big change, or do you feel like you're doing pretty much what you were doing before? Or, because obviously, obviously, I'm sure Ben might have a view on that. And he's moved into, I think he's gone to a more of a chairman role, hasn't he?
That's
I believe.
right. Yeah.
And obviously you're now sort of more hands-on as a CEO. What's the biggest sort of adjustment that you found into that position?
I mean, there is certainly a sense of responsibility attached to it that before I could blame Ben for everything that went wrong, which was pretty easy. He generally blamed me, but I would generally, no, it's got to talk to the CEO. No, and that's the thing. It's the buck stops with me ultimately. So when there are decisions to be made, when there are when we have to make decisions about which direction we're going in, what we're spending money on, whether we are going to say yes or no to something, it becomes my decision. And we have, I've got a great exec team I work with. One of the things that I've really tried to work on over the course of this year is, in a sense, it's a weird thing. As I've become CEO, I've actually tried to step back rather than step forward. And by which I mean, as I said, I've got a great exec team I work with. They are the next generation of the business, and I actually want them to be in a position where they feel empowered to make decisions about what they do, and I want them to feel the confidence to do that without fearing that I'm just going to criticize what they're saying. So I've tried to use the job as a means of kind of mentoring and elevating other people within the business, rather than actually trying to step there and kind of point fingers and say, do this, do that, do the other. It's so, and that's been a weird transition actually, because I suppose as CTO in many ways I was really getting my hands dirty on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
There was a lot of decision making which rested with me, and actually what I've tried to do is divest a lot of that, and to guide more than direct, if you see what I mean, and to think more strategically about where the business is going. So a lot of the work that I've been doing over the last kind of 8 months or so has actually been directed towards where is the business going? What does the next 3 years of the business look like? Has actually been my job for the last 8 months or so, whilst supporting the rest of the team to help grow the business to become robust and resilient on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, that's fantastic. I think you're building a really strong culture there. If you're allowing them the accountability and the responsibility to make those decisions to help, they're growing. So you might find your successor in that at some point. But if at the very least you're building a really good executive leadership team. Obviously, one of the things you've always said as well is that you guys as a business have always been really good at looking at 3-5 years ahead, and you've just lent on that now. So you're thinking 3-5 years ahead in the business, but also 3-5 years in the market as well, and where you guys should be. What does Intelligent Voice under Nigel Cannings as a CEO look like in the next 3 years, do you think?
Well, I see a period of very rapid growth coming, because the market is ready for what we're doing. It's been building up over the last 3 years, really. So if we look at where financial services is going, the voice channel, and voice is the big thing that we do. We do work with a lot of other stuff as well, but the voice channel is not going away. So brokers still talk to each other, people still call their banks, people still call insurance companies, and the regulation around that is becoming more and more pressing all the time. We see it in the UK, we see it in Europe. The US they go backwards and forwards depending upon which administration is in power, but the protection of personal data, the protection of individuals is becoming critical. And one of the things that we've really lent into is the interaction between the voice channel, or kind of the voice/video channel, so Teams and so on being a great example of that, linked to advances in AI. Hybrid working changed everything. I mean, it really did. That was the thing. That was the that was the kind of kick that the industry needed to think about what the voice channel actually means. Because what we've got is probably billions of hours of audio being transmitted through organizations, a lot of it being captured and recorded at the moment, because regulations say it has to be, or it's being kept because people, for quality and training purposes, as they say. But there is a huge pressure on CTOs and CIOs in companies at the moment to invest in AI and to make their processes more efficient. So what we've done is we've linked up the voice channel and the AI channel and basically said we can give you straight through processing on this. So let's say that you're in a bank, you are recording all of your Teams calls, and you want to do two things. You want to find out whether people are saying things that they shouldn't say, but what you also want to do is give value from that. You want to get a list of meeting notes. You want to get summary points and so on. We're actually able to channel the information coming out of that in both directions through the same platform. And I think we are. You should never use the word unique because there's nothing unique in the market. But we're at the leading edge of being able to offer a platform which says we can do things securely, we can do it in a very compliant fashion. We can add value to the data, so we can do data enrichment, we can do QA on the data that's coming through. So there's a massive compliance checklist that you've got to go down. Well, a lot of that checklist can be automated and then passed on to a human for review afterwards. But at the same time, we've also produced a beautiful list of action items that can be circulated out of the meeting and a summary, and we can do it securely. And that is where we're really beginning to see the traction at the moment is where do we spend our AI money? That's what we're being asked by companies.
Yeah.
We're being told we've got to invest in AI. We know we should be using it, but AI is such a generic and kind of nebulous thing. And we're presenting packaged solutions to people saying you literally, all you've got to worry about is plug in your meetings at one end, tell us what the output should be at the other end, and we've got a bunch of these kind of bots, we're calling them, which sit in the middle, which will do the processing for you, and we can chain these bots together so that it will produce multiple different outputs depending on what you need in the business. And it's a secure platform. You can run it in a secure fashion. You don't have to send your data out to the cloud to make it happen. And that is just that's igniting the imagination of a lot of people that we're working with at the moment, and we're seeing a lot of orders coming in based on that vision, and based on and it's a vision we've had for a number of years now, but it takes a while to get from kind of the vision bit to the understanding bit to the execution bit, where you can actually start to deliver this stuff effectively.
And is that largely coming through your channel partners then, or is that direct as well?
It's absolutely channel. I mean, the whole thing is channel. At this point, the growth in this business is through the channel, and we've got a number of, as I said, quite superb channel partners that we work with. Some of whom are more on what you might call the manufacturing side, so people who are kind of selling systems to people, other people who are more on the integration side, who are kind of building it in as part of other solutions, and that is really that's the thing which is going to be turbocharging the business through the next 3 years.
So that understanding of the benefit of what intelligent voice can give is now really sort of paying off, and people are now seeing its true value.
Yes, absolutely. But it's it's a struggle to get there, Nick. I mean, you've got to this, that at the end of the day, as a founder of a business, you have the responsibility for the people that you work with to ensure that the business continues to grow and continues to be successful. And you said something really interesting at the beginning about planning the business, about saving. Now, this is the thing which I say to everyone who goes into it, is you can't just expect to go around playing with other people's money. I think there's an idea for a lot of people these days that, what I'll do is I'll go and see a venture capitalist and they'll give me a load of money and that'll be fine. The majority of small businesses are built based on the capital of the founders. They are, I know we talk about bootstrapping, but, who's going to buy something from someone who doesn't believe in it themselves?
Oh, absolutely.
I've invested my own money in this business. I've invested my own time in this business. I've sweat, blood. I always say to people that I've never asked anyone to do anything that I wouldn't be willing to do myself, and that includes, making cups of tea, painting walls when we were moving offices once. I ended up sleeping on airport floors on a couple of occasions. There is literally nothing that I have done that, or that I've asked someone else to do that I haven't done myself or wouldn't be prepared to do. Apart from, I wouldn't ask them, I wouldn't ask them to put their money in, because this is my business, it's my responsibility.
Absolutely, you're entirely right. It's your money, it's your sweat and tears. I'm making the teas, I'm doing the washing up. I have one job, and to make sure there's enough money in the bank and to keep the company going. That is the goal. And getting these guys as passionate as I am. It's difficult to get them as passionate, but they've got to believe in it. They've got to love it too, and they've got to enjoy coming to work.
Yeah.
And you're doing that. You're clearly passionate about what you're doing. You're building a culture where you're making them accountable, and they feel a part of something, and they're developing. And the business has got a clear plan to grow. Yeah. So it does sound like the future's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Well, I hope so. I mean, the fact is, it can turn, it can turn on a dime, as the Americans like to say. I mean, I take every day as it comes. I really, really do. If one thing that being in business this long has taught me is never be surprised about the next surprise, because there will be one, and it will not be what you're expecting. It will always be something that's coming from left field, but they should know you're always going to, you will always get through it. I've never met a challenge that I haven't yet managed to get over.
So before we jump into your book quickly, to summarise then really, what we've sort of talked about and how you guys have made the successes. From what I gather and what I've taken from this is, you have basically always focused very much on the vision and the strategy of the business, and always kept 3 to 5 years ahead, so you knew where you were going.
Yep.
You've not dwelled on the fact that you've taken some wrong turns and you've tinkered with hardware when you shouldn't do, but because you've actually, the learning experience then has clearly demonstrated loads of value, and you've taken that learning and you've been able to show that expertise to your customers.
Yeah.
And then also it's about building this culture where you're actually, as a CEO, you're now sort of stepping back a little bit and actually entrusting and empowering a team to help take the business forward with you, rather than it all being on your shoulders. So so by doing that, you're covering all the main facets of actually building and growing a scalable business.
Yeah, that is the idea. I certainly hope that's what I'm doing there. Anyway, you probably find all my staff will listen to this, so that's absolute rubbish. He's a nightmare to work for. He's a control freak.
I don't believe that for 1 second.
I hope not. I really hope not.
Obviously, we touched on it before, but you have recently just launched a new book.
Yes.
Only a few weeks ago now. I think it was in September.
Right.
I think
it
was
beginning of September. Yeah, that's
so
right.
Beginning of September, which you kindly gave me a copy of, and I've read. Why don't you just talk us a little bit about it quickly, and we can sort of touch on a few of the key notes.
Yeah, sure. So it's something which has been on my mind for a long time. So the book's called The Displacement Dilemma. It's available on Amazon. Please buy and review. Reviews are very important. People love reviews. It all started a long time ago. I went to a lecture by a guy called Magnus Ravang, who was then a Gartner analyst, and I told Magnus that I'd written this book after, because I just wanted him to know. He was talking about the problems in call centers. He was very specifically focused on call centers. That he said, as we begin to kind of automate things in call centers, what happens if we replace, the person who's the best call center operative started off as the worst call center operative.
Yep.
And so they learn on the job, basically, is what they did. He said, if we start automating out all of the on the job training stuff that these people are doing, how will we then have the people to deal with the difficult problems in the future? And that was the premise of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked away from that, and I've been thinking a lot about it over the years, that, and I was kind of widening the thought out. So as a lawyer, in order to become a lawyer, I had to, I think Malcolm Gladwell's got this idea that you've got to do 10,000 hours of really proper hard work on something to become an expert at it. And I thought of all of the work that I did over the years in drafting contracts, reviewing contracts, going to hearings, being humiliated by judges, all sorts of stuff like this. And eventually, I became a half decent lawyer off the back of that. And that was just doing routine, mundane type of tasks. And we're replacing all of these tasks with AI. I mean, all of these tasks have either they're gone or going, or certainly will go in the next kind of 2 to 5 years max. So my concern is that we are going to all of the experts will get older. We won't be backfilling with people because there just won't be anything to train them on. And then we're going to wake up one day and realize that human expertise in its current form has evaporated because we've effectively taken it out of the market. So the book is exploring the potential problem, this potential problem of how AI could very, very rapidly erode all of the work that current experts are trained on. Because I am not going to pay my lawyers for a trainee solicitor to review and draft a contract when actually I know that AI could have done it better. I'm not paying £200 an hour for someone to do something that it took AI, 2 cents to do. So it ain't happening. I'm just not doing it. So the book is about the dilemma of how we train people and how we look at human expertise in the future. And just to give some thoughts around maybe how we overcome, as I said, this thing I'm calling the displacement dilemma, the whole displacement of expertise, the displacement of training before it's too late. So yeah, that's kind of the premise of the book now.
Yeah, I mean, well, I really enjoyed it, and it's something that we talk a lot about here, in the office, and it is a fascinating thing, and it is a true concern. And I think some people have very extreme views on it, don't they? Others, and I think but the fact that expertise is traditionally underpinned by experience, isn't it? Yeah. And it's so how will we become experts if we have no experience in what we're talking about? Yeah. So does that just mean in 10 years' time, an expert actually means something else? What makes an expert something slightly different? And I think that's time will tell, won't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the book opens with the phrase, "The legal profession is dead; it just doesn't know it yet," and I really believe that in its current form, the legal profession cannot survive. It's a very top-heavy, expensive, process-driven type of profession where a lot of what's done could easily be replaced by AI and AI agents. I mean, it really could. There's so much is done that gets charged a lot of money for, which could just be taken out.
Yeah.
And so the business model is flawed and the training model is flawed. And the same will be said for accountancy. And so it is about thinking, well, what are humans good at? That's really the thing. What are humans good at? We have empathy. We have the ability to interact socially with people. We have a very, we can negotiate with each other. We can sit in a room and we can negotiate with each other. We can talk over the telephone and reach an agreement. I don't think that you can take 2 AI bots and get them to argue with each other in a way that will necessarily produce the same result that you would if you've got two humans doing it. I mean, a simple example is, let's say I'm a little company and you're a big company and we are negotiating about something. Um, you as the big company probably hold a lot more power than I have. But there may come a point at which I, as the little company, turn around and say, I'm taking my briefcase and I'm shutting it now and I'm walking out the door. You cannot get AI to do that. It's just, you can't. But a lot of the stuff that gets you to that point, you can. So yeah, I think we have to redefine expertise. We have to teach. We've got to get away from stuffing people with rote learning in schools. We have to, teach them human skills. I think that's the thing. If we think about what makes us human, let's teach people to be more human. Let's help people with negotiation skills, with interaction skills, with interpersonal relationships, with understanding how AI works. I mean, it's a black box to most people.
Absolutely.
We all,
it really is.
We should be training people to be critical of these systems. We should be training our data scientists to understand the ethical concerns that come out of using these things. I mean, huge numbers of things that AI can do well, and there's a ton of stuff that it's always going to do badly. And I think that's where we need to get to. So I'm not gloomy about it. What I'm a bit gloomy about is the fact there's not really enough people taking the problem seriously enough at this point. AI is being implemented from an accountancy perspective almost. We can make it cheaper, so let's use it because it's cheaper, as opposed to saying we could do more with the resources we've got. We can have happier humans who are working less but are more productive because of the tools that we're giving them, as opposed to saying we can have fewer humans and the one who are left can just work as hard as they did before. That's really where, and economies only grow based on productivity. If we want to see, and here in the UK specifically, I think that we are underinvesting in AI. There's been a lot of splashy announcements about how the UK is one of the leading AI economies in the world, and we've got all these startups, and I don't actually see it on the ground, because a lot of this investment is actually being made by Amazon, it's being made by Google, it's being made by Microsoft. The domestic industry is still pretty poor, and we don't have the culture of investment in the UK that is required to really get the kind of megalith that we need. So I've strayed slightly off the topic there, but the book is also about some of the challenges of AI to national economies,
Absolutely,
as well as the challenges to kind of corporations as well. And these are all really important things to explore. And I hope the book does it.
I think it certainly does. It opens you up to a far wider issues that AI we're going to have to navigate through, essentially, because it's I think the future with AI is very much a real one. It's very exciting to see what's going to happen with AI in the next 5 years. Can't even imagine where we're going to be in the next 20 years, quite frankly. My imagination, I'm not that creative, but it's about how we work and coincide with it, I think, is ultimately where it is. Because yes, as you say, there will be jobs that are removed because of it, some certainly arguably certainly some menial jobs, for example, but it's also how we work with it. And you're right, there are things that it's not very good at, isn't it? And I think actually we need to play to our strengths. And work alongside it. And I encourage everyone to go and buy it. It's a great read, and I really enjoyed it very much. And I've really enjoyed today as well. So thank you very much. It's good to getting to know you more and your background, and obviously I continue to watch from the sidelines what's going on with Intelligent Voice, and I'm sure other people will do now as well.
Well, Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really, thanks ever so much for having me on. It's been great. And buy the book, review the book, buy the book.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Cheers then.
Thanks ever so much.
Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed today's conversation with Nigel and got something to take away. Nigel shared a lot about the future of intelligent voice, as well as his new book, The Displacement Dilemma, which explores all the potential impacts on human expertise due to the continuous developments in AI. Next week, we've got a great conversation with Amar Kapadia, the co-founder and CEO of Ayana Networks, and he shares a great insight into founding and selling his previous business. This is definitely one you're not going to want to miss. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to follow us over on LinkedIn so you don't miss a thing. Until next week.